Hi, I'm Shein Shanin and this is the evening highlights. Amid the 1MDB scandal, US President Barack Obama says he will raise issues of transparency and independence of investigating agencies and the media when he meets with Prime Minister Datuk Seri Najib Razak today. He was responding to a question from a Malaysian representative of the Young Southeast Asian Leaders Initiative at Taylor's University in Kuala Lumpur.
I would like to take this opportunity to ask you for your assistance in raising this issue to the Prime Minister of Malaysia and encourage transparency and independence of operations. Thank you. Of the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, Public Accounts Committee, the Bank Negara, and all media organizations. So, thank you.
Okay. Well, I will do it. So, now I admit that I was going to do it anyway, but now that I hear it from you, I'm definitely going to do it. But
Obama stressed that the US still has to work closely with countries whose records are far from perfect.
if I have to meet with President Xi of China, even though I may not agree with the approach of his government towards human rights, because China is such a big country, and on something like climate change, if we don't cooperate, then we won't solve the problem. There are occasions everywhere in the world where I will meet and the United States has a relationship and cooperates with a country, even though their human rights record may not be good. But I want to assure you that in all of those meetings, we always raise these issues.
Obama arrived here earlier today from the APEC summit in Manila, Philippines. And speaking of 1MDB, Deputy Finance Minister Chua Tee-yong says the EPF is independent and not reliant on government funding, amid suspicion that EPF monies have been used to bail out 1MDB. He says the retirement fund's results speak for themselves.
Number one, EPF has been providing consistent returns since inception. That's number one. Number two, in the recent years, despite the increase of members, you notice that the dividend that is being given out has increased also, even though the number of members have increased. Like recently, I think the dividend that they have provided for in year 2014 is 6.75, where the value is around 36 billion.
He says this shows that EPF has been consistently providing returns and safeguarding the assets of the investment of those retirees. Chua was responding to a question on the lack of public confidence towards the EPF. This after it was revealed that the retirement fund had invested in bonds linked to 1MDB.
It's really clearly stated in the parliament that EPF invests in IPP bonds and things like that. They did not actually invest in 1MDB. So it says that 1MDB subsequently acquired the IPP plant. So as such, the debt comes along with it. So before the inception of 1MDB acquiring the plant, it was just a normal investment for bonds.
Chua was speaking to reporters during a visit to the EPF's office in Kuala Lumpur. Meanwhile, 1MDB is reportedly close to striking a deal to sell control of its power assets to a foreign consortium. Citing sources with knowledge of the matter, Bloomberg says an agreement with China General Nuclear Power Corp and Qatar's Nebras Power could be announced as soon as this weekend. According to its sources, the deal could value 1MDB's EDRA Global Energy at about 10 billion ringgit. That would trump TNB's offer, which at slightly above 8 billion ringgit was the lowest bid for EDRA. The deal would reportedly be conditional on the consortium being able to obtain at least half of the business. Bloomberg says an agreement hasn't been signed yet and talks could still fall apart. 1MDB had called for an international tender for the sale of EDRA assets as part of its restructuring to reduce its debts of 42 billion ringgit. EDRA's power assets have 3,112 megawatts of capacity in Malaysia and account for 14% of the country's electricity supply. Moving on, Standard Chartered says the ringgit is trading up to 15% below its intrinsic value, and in the near term, we'll be seeing the currency weaken even further by 3 to 5% against the US dollar. StanChart's chief investment strategist Steve Bryce says this is due to the weaker fundamentals and lack of positive catalysts.
You've got weak oil prices, you've got portfolio outflows, you've got the trade balance not being great, we've got FX reserves falling. So, we've seen some of those pressures abate a little bit in recent times, but I think over the next 3 months or so, those pressures are still likely to be a major headwind for the ringgit.
Bryce says the ringgit has weakened to current levels as investors take note of Malaysia's balance of payment, real deposit rates and foreign exchange reserves. But he's not so bearish as to assume that the ringgit would weaken past 4.8 against the greenback. This as he takes into account a commodity price recovery in the second half of next year. The ringgit's strength tracks prices of crude oil, which forms a crucial portion of the Malaysian economy and government revenue. So as the ringgit's valuations are extremely cheap, the currency should rebound along with commodity prices as well, although Bryce doesn't see it appreciating past the 4.0 level. Bumi Armada saw its third quarter earnings drop significantly from the previous corresponding period. That's due to lower demand for its offshore support vessels from the oil and gas sector. For the quarter under review, Bumi Armada recorded 70 million ringgit in net profit, 35% lower compared with a year earlier. Revenue was at 560 million ringgit. That's 12.1% dropped from 636.51 million ringgit reported the previous year. For the cumulative 9 months, the company recorded a net loss of 150 million ringgit compared with a net profit of 271 million in the previous corresponding period. Revenue fell moderately to some 1.6 billion ringgit. Bumi Armada says the net loss came on asset impairment and depreciation amid higher finance costs and taxes, while revenue fell as OSV vessel utilization continued to be adversely affected by the challenging ONG market environment. And that's all the time we have for now. I'm Shein Shanin. Thank you so much for watching and good night.